whole
Have with
chopper
me
deal.
senior BJP leader and former defense minister Mr. Jaswant Singh ji. Let me begin by asking him, Jaswant Singh ji, yet another scam, horrendous as it is. The former air chief says the QRs were changed at a time when the NDA was in power. Can you explain why that was done, sir?
Of course, it's very distressing that yet another occasion ought to arrive. When we start investigating and charging everybody with malfunctions, malfeasance, the changing of QRs was a correct decision at the correct time. The Air Force around 2000, if I recollect correctly, came up with a suggestion that to the cabinet that it is not possible for the Mi-8, which was being used up till then, to ferry VIPs whenever the VIP travels. And therefore we would need a replacement for that. That was approved by the cabinet. I think the Cabinet Committee on Security, and it was suggested that a request for proposals be floated. One of the yardsticks in that RFP was that the helicopter ought to be able to go up to a height of 18,000. That resulted in a single vendor kind of a situation. A proposal came by a company whose name I cannot now recollect. But that was only one company that said we could produce a helicopter which would go up to the height of 18,000. That when it came to the Cabinet Committee on Security, quite rightly, the then National Security Advisor said that this would be anomalous, not acceptable that there be a single vendor situation. Therefore, Air Force was required to go back and prepare an RFP reducing the height from 18 to 15,000, which resulted in all these companies coming up with a proposal. And then the whole process started again, and Augusta Westland won the contract.
So, as a soldier and as a former defense minister, are you in a position to say that everything that in this deal was above board?
How can I say that when the Italian court has ruled that there is corruption, that is bribery, that is. I'm not so sure that the bribery has all come to India. I'm pretty sure a lot of it has remained in Italy. What distresses is that Italy, of all countries, has already investigated, has already arrived at decision and punished. And it's no good saying, I find it very distressing for both the MEA, their spokesman, or the Ministry of Defense to say, oh, we sent a request to Italy to give us the facts. We don't send requests when corruption is involved. I would have dealt with it very differently. But thereafter, for our ministries to sit for 12 months and do nothing is unacceptable.
So now that an inquiry has been ordered and there is the needle of suspicion is on a lot of people, politicians as well as a former air chief, what would you want the government to do?
Well, I would want the government to inquire at the speediest possible manner. A great deal of the facts are already known. I think it's no good requesting it. We need to send a stronger diplomatic message. We need the information. The information is all here. But we shouldn't straight away jump and start charging the former distinguished Air Chief Marshal for wrongdoing. Not that I know the Air Chief Marshal. I've known the Air Chief Marshals from Air Marshal Jaswant Singh down. But that's not the point. He's the highest possible rank that the Air Force can produce. Don't denigrate the Air Force in the process so casually. And don't wound the Air Force. It's a a vital arm of the army, of our armed forces. They are already deficient of so much equipment, and if in the process we further reduce their requirements, further delay fulfilling their requirements, we only harm the country.
So that brings me to the next question, that every time there is a scandal or there are allegations of corruption in defense deals, defense procurements suffer. Shouldn't all political parties, the entire political class, act with greater responsibility when it comes to issues of national security?
It's not defense procurement that suffers, it's India that suffers. India's defense preparedness that suffers. And of course, political parties have to find a mechanism whereby we find a method of not getting trapped every time such a situation arises. There are two or three wrongs here. That corruption is occurring, continues to recur, and that we start cutting each other's throats instead of working much harder to remove corruption from defense deals or from any other activity. I found it so distressing. Anyway, that's a long story. I won't go into it. Your television won't have the time for it.
So one last question. You know, everybody, the needle of suspicion is on a lot of people. Do you think politically politicians are involved, and do you think money has changed hands and politicians have gained monetarily from this?
No, I'm not free to say that. Has money changed its hands? No doubt, certainly. Is there corruption? Of course. Italy particularly specializes in it. It's renowned. The whole of Europe says that. The world says it. What should we do? I personally think a lot of this money has perhaps gone to Italians only, and a little bit has come here. Let us not be so free about charging everyone else here. Certainly not officers who have spent their lifetime in service of India.
So will a CBI inquiry satisfy you?
Well, that's what the defense minister has already ordered. It's not a question of my subjective satisfaction. It's much more a question of expeditiously, rapidly, in the fastest possible manner, arriving at the truth so that the country is relieved of the ignominy of having to carry this kind of burden on ourselves.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. That was former Defense Minister Mr. Jaswant Singh. He believes a thorough and expeditious probe should help the nation get to the bottom of the matter. With camera person Ashok Bainot, this is Javed Ansari in New Delhi for Headlines Today.